The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors, for as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it.
I think that I was actually selected or targeted at a very early age. I'm guessing that it probably happened starting when I was about 3 years old. That would have made it in 1950. I think they targeted children who had a lot of potential. They wanted really bright children to experiment on. And the other common thread seems to be that the father was connected to the military, as mine had been. My father was a very damaged veteran of World War II, and he was a pedophile, and he was very abusive. Both the American and the Canadian governments, via the CIA, were conducting mind control experiments on children that started in the 40s, and I believe are continuing to this day. And I am a survivor of the experimentation. Something that has recently come to light in Canada are the claims by a woman named Dorothy Proctor, who was an inmate in Kingston Women's Prison in the 1960s, Dorothy was subjected to LSD and sensory deprivation experiments when she was 17 years old. Canada's involvement in the development and the research of brainwashing techniques to be used on its own citizens ultimately, I would think began as early as 1937 or 1938. Jim Bronskill, again from Southam News, wrote an article in late December of 97 describing the correspondence between Dr. George Estabrook from Colgate College in Upper State New York and Hamilton, New York, and Superintendent Bevan, who was the head of the RCMP for Canada in 1940. Based on the correspondence, Bevan and Estabrooks had had a dialogue prior to this letter being written, and Estabrooks had been invited to discuss creating Manchurian candidates basically for the Canadian government in Ottawa in 1940. In their correspondence, Estabrooks said he would simply need access to a hospital or an institution like that for a minimum of 1 week. And he would use hypnosis and other techniques to create dissociated personalities, multiple personalities, to create what became to be known as Manchurian candidates.
As far as I understand it, it came from the notion of people coming back from the Korean War, that they were totally different people and a totally different set of attitudes and things like this. They were, God help us, they were anti-American, if you can possibly anybody being that way. And the question is, what were they doing to their soldiers? They hadn't the faintest idea what they were doing. And so they thought maybe these kind of drastic measures like LSD and so on and so forth would do the trick. And so they investigated it. And of course the Americans didn't want to use their own population because of the political repercussions. And here was Ewan Cameron, who was very happy to use Canadian citizens, but the CIA were very happy to do that.
Some of the most prominent psychiatrists, psychologists, people who were involved in neurological studies, and including some of the presidents of the American Psychiatric Association, the Canadian Psychiatric Association, were involved in conducting these experiments on children. They used electricity, implants, a lot of experimental drugs were used, sensory deprivation was used.
And then there was a whole pile of stuff that was done in Winnipeg also in the 70s, where people were put in tanks. They put in wetsuits and put in tanks and everything was closed down and so on. But basically the kind of thing that they were looking for was how brain function changes and how we process information, in these very extreme conditions.
A simple form of torture that they used on myself and on a lot of other children was the dislocation of your limbs. So they dislocated both your arms and your legs. And that was probably the simplest, easiest, and cheapest way to reinforce the notion that you were absolutely helpless and that you could do nothing physically to defend or protect yourself from what they were going to do to you. Because your mind would say, I have to lift up my arm, I want to hit or I want to strike. Or your mind would say to your legs, get up and run, we need to run. And all you would be, there would just be your torso and your head.
But are people manipulable? Yes. Can you get people to do things they might not otherwise want to do? Yes.
Being strapped down being strapped down on a table, having electricity applied like to your vagina or to that area, having electricity applied to your spine.
If you want to sort of go one stage back and say, can you control behavior? The answer is yes, you can.
There was pedophilia involved as well. I think a lot of research people were blackmailed into taking part in experiments or into taking part in the cover-up because the children were used, we were used for pornography and pedophilia. And a really common occurrence was a scientist or a researcher who they needed to be involved or they needed to be complicit with them. He would find himself attending something. They would then drug him and he would find himself in bed with a child with a camera just like this one, documenting what was going on. So that we were used as children that way, complicitly.
I want to say, is there mind control? The answer is yes, there are ways in which behavior can be changed. I want to say, is there mind control? The answer is yes, there are ways in which behavior can be changed.
I must have been given LSD at some point too as a child because I have a fragment, I have a part of me that I call Monster Girl. I felt like I had scales, and I understand that now as an adult. I probably was given LSD because it heightens the tactile, so that if you felt a piece of fabric, it could feel maybe like cement, although it was in fact really soft. My skin felt so rough, I perceived myself to be like a monster. And as a child, I certainly I had no control over what they were injecting me with or giving me. And I certainly would have no way to understand, as many adults who were used in experiments would have no way of understanding what was occurring to them in a sensory way.
The notion was that drugs like LSD and so on looked very much like our neurotransmitters, and the theory stated that something was wrong with these neurotransmitters, and so what people tried to do was to create, if you want, artificial psychoses.
They took this eyeball out and it rested here, and they inserted something right in there behind. They went into that cavity and they inserted something right in there. I guess that's the sinus cavity. And there was another insert that went right up a very long, thin wire that went up my nostril, up into there. I can remember when they did the insert there in behind my eye, I can remember hearing them say, again with so much self-pleasure, they would never think of looking behind the eye. No one would ever think of, no one in a medical checkup for whatever complaint the person had would ever think of looking in behind the eye. It's really it's really difficult to say, come inside my head and I'll tell you how I cope, or come inside my head and I'll tell you what it's like in my daily life. I've gone through times where it's way better now, but it was almost as if I had Tourette's syndrome, because I would go to say something, and what would come out would be sort of a caw-caw, or and that was the impact of the electricity. And I think I was pretty silent too until I was about 35. I sort of prided myself on my silence. I realized after I had been in therapy for a while that my silence had more to do with an inability to literally express or the tremendous fear about expressing what it was that I wanted to say. I think my collages and my drawings say more than I could ever say in words. Maybe a few years from now I'll be able to articulate better. But at this point, I think those visual representations say what needs to be said. It needs to be said to young people. It needs to be said to people because they do not know what our governments have been doing. They have absolutely no awareness at all.
Hello, everyone. I'm from your telephone company. We know that dial telephones are easy to use. However, mistakes in dialing do occur. These mistakes waste a lot of time and can cause someone else to be inconvenienced and probably irritated.
all we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Two police officers are now on desk duty following the death of a Staten Island man. They put him in what appears to be a chokehold.
Bystanders captured the arrest on video, and Mayor de Blasio postponed his overseas vacation to focus on the incident. CBS 2's Janelle Burrell is in Harlem, where a rally with the victim's family is planned for later today. Janelle?
Diane, the family of Eric Garner described him as a gentle giant, and they were distraught watching him die in that cell phone video. So later here this morning in Harlem, along with Al Sharpton, they will be demanding a full investigation, which the mayor and the police commissioner are promising.
What? Every time you see me, you want to mess with me.
These final moments of Eric Garner's life captured on cell phone video that even Mayor de Blasio is calling troubling.
A terrible tragedy that no family should have to experience.
The 43-year-old married father of 6 trying to walk away from police who had stopped him on the Staten Island sidewalk Thursday for allegedly selling illegal, untaxed cigarettes.
Don't touch me, please.
After telling the officers to leave him alone, they put Garner in a chokehold, pinning him to the ground where Garner, who was asthmatic, is heard telling the cops he's in trouble.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
He then becomes unconscious. Soon after, he is dead. This woman says she saw the entire confrontation unfold.
He didn't deserve it. He really did not deserve to go like that.
The chokeholds are, in fact, prohibited by the New York City Police Department because of the concerns of potential death arising from them.
The case is now the center of a criminal investigation and an internal NYPD probe. Garner does have a record of more than 30 arrests, mostly misdemeanors, for selling those illegal cigarettes. But his wife, too distraught to speak, thinks it's no excuse for the way Garner was treated. Their family left to care for their 6 kids, now without their father.
I'm just numb, you know, just very, very numb about it.
It gives us a little relief that they're going to investigate and do something about this. They're going to investigate, and that's good.
Commissioner Bratton says in the wake of this incident, he may order that all officers be retrained. As for Garner's family, after their appearance here in Harlem this morning, they will head back to Staten Island, where they will rally with community leaders later this afternoon. For now, we are live in Harlem. Janelle Burrell, CBS 2 News.
Janelle, thank you.
You play a hard way for what? Every time you see me, you want to mess with me. I'm tired of it. It stops today.
This guy right here is forcibly trying to lock somebody up for breaking up a fight.
Everybody standing here, they told you I didn't do nothing. I did not sell nothing. Because every time you see me, you want to harass me, you want to stop me, trying to sell a cigarette. I'm minding my business, officer. I'm minding my business. Please just leave me alone. I told you the last time, please just leave me alone. Please, don't touch me. Don't touch me, please.
Hold on.
Listen, don't touch me, please. Do not touch me.
Damn, man. Stop. Give your hands, buddy. Where your hand, buddy?
I can't breathe. 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 I can't breathe.
Once again, police beating up on people.
Back up.
Right here.
Back up and get on that step.
Okay.
Back up.
All he did was break up a fight. And this is what happens for breaking up a fight. This shit is crazy.
Everybody back up, back up.
He can't breathe. Look, now I mean, they gave this man a seizure.
Yo, move out the way. Yo.
It's my brother. We live here.
You know what? Back up this way. Everybody now back up. It's now going to become a crisis. Back it up. Back it up.
I'm going to my house.
No. This way. Let's go.
Can't go in my
In the house or that way?
All right, I go that way.
Pick a choice.
Let me get my
Let's
bike.
Go. You had your chance to get your bike, sir. Stand over there. Right now we have a scene.
My brother right there. He was just breaking up a fight. He's all right. He's good. It has nothing to do with the fight. It has something to do with something else.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though, as for that, the passing there had really worn them about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
The myth of overpopulation originated in England in 1798, when a vicar named Thomas Malthus, who fancied himself something of a mathematician, saw that food production increased incrementally, but people reproduced exponentially. He sat down and did some simple math, and summarily decided that the world would be out of food by 1890. He blamed reduced mortality rates, and recommended killing off the have-nots of society, lest the haves starve to death. This cry was taken up by Paul Ehrlich of Stanford University in 1968, who claimed that reckless human reproduction had overwhelmed the Earth. Massive famines would result, which would destroy, best-case scenario, 1/5 of humanity by the end of the 70s. And the planet would follow. This fear produced large donations for the newly created UNFPA, which thrives on an imagined crisis that has been both imminent and rescheduled again and again over the past 2 centuries. The truth of the matter is that every family on this planet could have a house with a yard and all live together on a landmass the size of Texas, which is really just a small corner of the planet. The population of Earth will peak in 30 years and then start to go back down. We're not overpopulated. Do the math.
If you look at global food supplies today, there's more than enough food to feed everybody adequately. But you have a huge imbalance in terms of demand and supply, so that in some places you've got people who are eating far too much and are suffering serious obesity as a consequence. So you've got more than 1 billion people worldwide overeating, and then you've got, 1 billion or more people worldwide who do not have enough to eat. So I think you can see some, such as sugarcane, ethanol in Brazil, that seem to be relatively effective. That's to say that there's a net carbon benefit from growing sugarcane, converting it, and using it in fuel tanks. But then there are other cases like maize ethanol in the US, which are frankly completely bonkers, mad. They make no sense at all. They're heavily subsidized, plus they generate more carbon in their production than they save through their use as biofuel.
In this hut right in the middle of Loitanet village, Kaiko division in the county of Turkana, lies the body of a 28-year-old man. He is the latest to succumb to the pangs of famine. In this village, one of the most adversely affected by the extended drought and famine, many more are staring death in the face. A good number of the women lining up behind me haven't had a meal in days and are still counting, and many of them are not sure when that next meal will come. But for now, their main concern is getting a little food for their young ones, a majority of whom are suffering from serious malnutrition. Indeed, malnutrition levels here are alarmingly high. Currently, they stand at 37.4%. The World Health Organization and the World Food Programme says anything above 15% constitute an emergency. The danger these levels portend for this community are grave and could transcend beyond this generation.
And what we now know is if children who are very young or do not have access to nutritious food when they're very young, between birth and 3 years old, their brains cannot develop properly.
Even without the drought, these communities have always been vulnerable. The harsh environment has forced them to rely primarily on livestock to survive. But now even that option is no longer viable.
Ninja. Sasa pili hata sisi kwa hapa saa hii hata mahali imeisha. Sasa ndio tunakaa kapu. Hakuna hata kitu ya kula. Matunda hata ya hii miti hakuna hata kula. Hakuna hata ile ya kula nayo.
While the prevailing drought has been classified as the worst to hit the Horn of Africa in the last 60 years, Aid agencies maintain a lot could have been done to mitigate against its severity.
Their condition is just unacceptable. As a nation that is almost 50 years of independence, we can't today be proud of ourselves with this current situation.
Now attention is focused on raising money urgently to help stem the rising number of deaths attributed to starvation.
We have witnessed some human situations that are unacceptable, totally unacceptable, and we cannot sit in Nairobi on our fat sofas and enjoy life when this is going on in our own country.
We're urging Canadians to be generous. The needs are great. As I said, we have raised to date over $1 million in Canada. The Canadian government has committed over $80 million to the affected areas.
But here in Loitanet, Kaiko, and indeed the larger Turkana County, the over 400,000 people without food and water can only wait and hope that the government and well-wishers will come to their aid soon before it's too late for them. Hope is all that keeps them alive now. Brenda Bolinya, NTV, in Kaiko, Turkana.
What do you desire? What makes you itch? What sort of a situation would you like? Let's suppose, I do this often in vocational guidance of students. They come to me and say, well, we're getting out of college and we haven't the faintest idea what we want to do. So I always ask the question, what would you like to do if money were no object? How would you really enjoy spending your life? Well, it's so amazing. As a result of our kind of educational system, crowds of students say, well, we'd like to be painters, we'd like to be poets, we'd like to be writers, but as everybody knows, you can't earn any money that way. Or another person says, well, I'd like to live an out-of-doors life and ride horses. I say, do you want to teach in a riding school? Let's go through with it. What do you want to do? When we finally got down to something which the individual says he really wants to do, I will say to him, you do that. And forget the money. Because if you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you will spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is, to go on doing things you don't like doing, which is stupid. Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way. And after all, if you do really like what you're doing, it doesn't matter what it is, you can eventually turn it, you could eventually become a master of it. It's the only way to become a master of something, to be really with it. And then you'll be able to get a good fee for whatever it is. So don't worry too much. Somebody's interested in everything. And anything you can be interested in, you'll find others who are. But it's absolutely stupid to spend your time doing things you don't like in order to go on spending things you don't like, and doing things you don't like, and to teach your children to follow in the same track. See, what we're doing is we're bringing up children and educating them to live the same sort of lives we're living, in order that they may justify themselves and find satisfaction in life by bringing up their children, to bring up their children to do the same thing, so it's all wretch and no vomit. It never gets there. And so, therefore, it's so important to consider this question: what do I desire?
It's not the love of money. Many people ask, oh, it's just the love of money. Money, there's nothing wrong with money, man. It's just a form of exchange. You know, we're so poisoned that we try and argue for it. We try and defend it. That's how poisoned our minds have become. It's incredible. It's not the love of money. It's the mere presence of money that causes all these problems. If you take money out of the system, all this stuff suddenly and miraculously vanishes. So what is the solution? If it's the mere presence of money or the love of money, of all of the above, what are we going to do to solve the problem? The answer is so blatantly obvious. Remove money. Just get rid of it. Get rid of it. What do we need it for? It's causing all the strife in our lives. It's destroying our planet. The mines are raping our Mother Earth, taking out the precious guts out of our Gaia and distributing it around the world to people that claim they own it. It's sick. The obvious questions, if you remove money, so who's going to shovel the crap? How are we going to pay for things? I'll just sit on my ass and do nothing. I want 50 Ferraris. You know, are we going back to the dark ages, living in caves? Is this a lawless society? Who's going to make the rules? Why should I do something I don't want? These are the first things. I know these are the most commonly asked questions, and I'm sure that you're asking some of them to yourselves. But I can tell you that as you work through this process of a moneyless society, Ubuntu society, where everybody contributes their natural talents or acquired skills to the greatest benefit of all, with certain minor rules that are not rules, it's really just an agreement that this is how we're going to work together. The moment you start working in that kind of community, the abundance is so spectacular that we, right now, cannot imagine it. It is not possible for us to imagine it until you start immersing yourself in this kind of thinking. And I call these the Ubuntu communities, as I said, where everyone contributes their natural talents or acquired skills for the greater benefit of all in the community. A new social structure for a new world and a new age. Abundance for all beyond our wildest belief. There are 5 mantras, 5 key points to the Ubuntu society. And it's not barter or trade. Everybody often jumps, a lot of people jump to the conclusion, think, oh, let's go back to barter. No. He who has more to barter or trade will eventually rule the roost. So you can't go to that system. If you have nothing to trade, what are you going to say? Well, I got nothing to trade, so I'll have to, kiss your butt. No. So the Ubuntu contribution mantra is the 5 points. No money, no barter, no trade, no value attached to anything greater or lesser than anything else. Because why? Each one of our contributions should be and is equally valuable. If you start telling, well, I'm a doctor, my time is more valuable than yours, you're barking up the wrong tree, brother. Okay. So, and the final one, where everyone contributes for the greater benefit of all in the community, because that is how you get rewarded. You get rewarded by the recognition of the people in your community. Isn't that the highest reward everybody wants and is trying to buy with money, is recognition and respect of others? In essence, ultimately, that's what most people really want, is just to be loved and recognized for what they've done. And they think they can use money to do that. And then when they make a lot of money, they get zillions in the bank, then they suddenly realize, oh, well, nobody loves me anymore. They all want to take my money. So let me spend my money and then people will love me. And that's generally what happens when they start paying for things and people love them more, when they start giving it away. So, united Ubuntu communities. In unity we thrive, and anything is possible. Anything is possible. A world without money. There's no crime, no envy, no gluttony, no greed, no hoarding, no hierarchy. And the whole Ubuntu movement and the Ubuntu party has no hierarchy. Communities look after themselves. We have no central government. We don't have any central assholes trying to tell you how you should be running your life. No obstacles to any kind of progress, because the solutions are simple, and there are many bright minds here. We all know what the solutions are, what should be done to solve the problems, and somehow our politicians just can't get it right. They keep screwing it up, So don't ask the politicians to solve it. Give it to the scientists, give it to the farmers, give it to the engineers. They'll solve the problems for us. Ordinary people will. Politicians will do nothing. Transition will have to occur in simple steps that flow from one to the other. We can't go from zero to hero. We can't go from a moneyless-driven, capitalistic, consumeristic monster to a moneyless society that lives in harmony and zen, right? It's not going to happen. So if you go onto my website, the ubuntuparty.org.za website, I've started posting a number of papers on how the transition will take place. There's not time for it now, so I ask you, please go onto our website and check it out. It's beautiful. What's key here is that the small towns will probably play a very important part in the transformation, because in small towns and small communities, people will agree on things a lot quicker than in the big cities. Right? So they will agree, okay, we need to get off the grid. We need to grow enough food for all of us. We need to make sure we got water. And they can go out and do it. We must create alternative energy for ourselves in our town. So if the grid goes down, we stay alive. And the small towns and villages will become the activators of this transitional phase. And I put together a few theories and ideas to give people ideas how to start doing this. It also goes into our education and schooling systems, where we stop sending your children to school. Please, I beg you, don't send your children to school. Don't do it. You're turning them into monsters. I've had a few of my friends in Johannesburg, in South Africa, that have not sent their kids to school. They are much smarter than the kids that go to school. And I'm not kidding you. They really are. They just learn from their parents, and they learn, and you'll find that what happens with these kids, they start reading later. They might start reading a little bit later. But when they start reading, they become like these monster little readers. They just read everything. I mean, these little kids are reading books that, other kids don't even dream of. And that's because they're not preconditioned by the schooling system. Energy, water, food, housing, arts and recreation. These are the things that small communities can take control of very, very quickly and establish it for themselves, make themselves go off the grid and be totally in control of their own destiny. And many community projects must be and should be attached to this activity. Absolute abundance on all levels. Once you start doing this, food, science, culture, community, abundance on all levels. Now I'm going to give you a small example. You've got to use your imagination here because there's not enough time now and we've got to finish off here. So imagine in a little town that I live, we got a river, we got a fish farm, we got a dairy farm, we got a bakery, we got a wood factory, a metal factory. The community starts to work in these projects. The whole Ubuntu thing means that, and contribution means that everybody must contribute 3 hours a week towards one of these community projects. That's all you have to do, 3 hours a week. A little town of 1,000 people, it's 3,000 hours a week. No municipality or town council can afford 3,000 hours a week salaries for people to do this work. Can you see how that's dramatically shifted the status quo and the equilibrium? How much we can produce if we just work for 3 hours a week on basic projects. Producing milk, cheese, butter, fish, breeding fish, baking bread, growing vegetables, and so forth. So now the community has been doing this for 6 months or a year, and they've established abundance on all levels, where all the people in that community that participate, that's why I called it contributionism, that participate and add their talent and their skills and their time, get everything, not for free, but virtually for free, so cheaply that the rest of the stuff, and also there's a principle where you create 3 times as much as you need for your own community. And I structure everything in the Ubuntu philosophy on the sacred geometry principles, 3366. So you produce 3 times as much as you need for your community. Why? Because there'll be other communities that can't produce what you're doing, so you'll be actually helping them while they're helping you with the things that you can't produce. So, and by the end of that, there's so much abundance because you're doing it 3 times that whatever you don't consume in your own little village or town, what are you going to do with? You're going to make it available on farmers markets and stores in your town for the surrounding communities. The moment you achieved that state, you've created the domino effect. Because what's going to happen to all the neighboring towns? All the people from those towns are going to come buy your bread, your milk, your cheese, your whatever it is you produce. Because it's going to be a fraction of the cost they pay for it in their own town. There's your domino effect. There's your trigger point. So think about it from that perspective. At the outset, it sounds like a huge thing. Wow, how are we going to go from there to a moneyless society? I believe that I've just taken you through a very simplistic example of how small towns and small villages and communities can be the trigger points and the examples that start the domino effect. Once the first town is set up, it's impossible for the surrounding towns to stay alive. They will have to follow the same example. Otherwise, all their businesses will close down. And when they do close down, then they will follow your example. So either they will do it willingly or they'll be forced into it because of stupidity. In the Ubuntu communities, children follow their passion and their dreams. The education system changes completely. There are no classrooms. Children learn real, practical skills. So by the age of 16, they've done everything. They've baked the bread. They've worked in nuclear laboratories. They've built rockets. They've built homes. They've built earthships. They've planted seedlings and grown fruit. And they'll be so wise by the time you're 16 because you've had all this experience. You'll be smarter than all the professors in the world thrown together today.
God! Oh 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 shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh God!
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
On September the 11th, enemies of freedom committed an act of war against our country. Americans have known wars, but for the past 136 years, they have been wars on foreign soil, except for one Sunday in 1941. Americans have known the casualties of war, but not at the center of a great city on a peaceful morning. Americans have known surprise attacks, but never before on thousands of civilians. All of this was brought upon us in a single day, and night fell on a different world, a world where freedom itself is under attack. Americans have many questions tonight. Americans are asking, who attacked our country? The evidence we have gathered all points to a collection of loosely affiliated terrorist organizations known as Al-Qaeda. They are some of the murderers indicted for bombing American embassies in Tanzania and Kenya, and responsible for bombing the USS Cole. Al-Qaeda is to terror what the mafia is to crime, but its goal is not making money. Its goal is remaking the world and imposing its radical beliefs on people everywhere. The terrorists practice a fringe form of Islamic extremism that has been rejected by Muslim scholars and the vast majority of Muslim clerics, a fringe movement that perverts the peaceful teaching of Islam. The terrorist directive commands them to kill Christians and Jews, to kill all Americans, and make no distinctions among military and civilians, including women and children. This group and its leader, a person named Osama bin Laden, are linked to many other organizations in different countries, including the Egyptian Islamic Jihad and the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan. There are thousands of these terrorists in more than 60 countries. They are recruited from their own nations and neighborhoods and brought to camps in places like Afghanistan, where they are trained in the tactics of terror. They are sent back to their homes or sent to hide in countries around the world to plot evil and destruction. The leadership of Al-Qaeda has great influence in Afghanistan and supports the Taliban regime in controlling most of that country. In Afghanistan, we see Al-Qaeda's vision for the world. Afghanistan's people have been brutalized. Many are starving, and many have fled. Women are not allowed to attend school. You can be jailed for owning a television. Religion can be practiced only as their leaders dictate. A man can be jailed in Afghanistan if his beard is not long enough. The United States respects the people of Afghanistan. After all, we are currently its largest source of humanitarian aid, but we condemn the Taliban regime.
Madam Secretary, nice to see you. And this is our second trip to Pakistan with you.
It is. Thank you for coming along.
Are we getting ahead of the game? Are we actually, I mean, is our money paying off in terms of getting security? Because we've had this recent event, and they've even had more, we see violence all the time in this country.
This is tough. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's not. But boy, do I think it would be a mistake to walk away. We've done that. We have walked away from both Pakistan and Afghanistan in the past with all the consequences we're well aware of.
So, so if you think if we walked away from this, didn't give them money today, it would be worse for us from a security standpoint?
I do. I do. We're building a relationship that just did not exist. I said in our last trip when you were with me that we had a huge trust deficit, in part because the United States had, to be fair, we had helped to create the problem we're now fighting.
How?
To be fair, we had helped to create the problem we're now fighting.
How?
to be fair, we had helped to create the problem we're now fighting.
How?
Because when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, we had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else to go after the Soviets inside Afghanistan. And we were successful. The Soviets left Afghanistan, and then we said, great, goodbye, leaving these trained people who were fanatical in Afghanistan and Pakistan, leaving them well armed, creating a mess, frankly, that at the time we didn't really recognize. We were just so happy to see the Soviet Union fall, and we thought, okay, fine, we're okay now. Everything's going to be so much better. Now you look back, the people we're fighting today, we were supporting in the fight against the Soviets. Now you look back, the people we're fighting today, we were supporting in the fight against the Soviets. Now you look back, the people we're fighting today, we were supporting in the fight against the Soviets.
John Dodson, a federal agent, says what he was asked to do was beyond belief.
You were intentionally letting guns go to Mexico.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, the agency was.
An alcohol, tobacco, and firearms senior agent assigned to this Phoenix office since 2010, Dodson's job is to stop gun trafficking across the border. Instead, he says he was ordered to sit by and watch it happen. Investigators call the tactic letting guns walk, in this case into the hands of criminals who would use them in Mexico and the U.S. Dodson's bosses say that never happened. Now he's risking his job to go public.
I'm boots on the ground here in Phoenix and telling you we've been doing it every day since I've been here. Here I am. Tell me I didn't do the things that I did. Tell me you didn't order me to do the things that I did. Tell me it didn't happen. Now you have a name on it, you have a face to put with it. Here I am, someone now. Tell me it didn't happen.
Agent Dodson and other insiders say the gun-walking strategy was approved all the way to the Justice Department. The idea was to see where the guns ended up, build a big case, and take down a major cartel. And it was all kept secret from Mexico.
ATF named the case Fast and Furious. This surveillance video obtained by CBS News shows suspected drug cartel suppliers carrying boxes of weapons to their cars at a Phoenix gun shop. Those long boxes being loaded into the red car are AK-47 type assault rifles.
He's armed again, carrying another, appears to be 5 boxes of hard-case Pelican that would hold a pistol.
So it turns out ATF not only allowed the guns to walk, they videotaped it. Documents show the inevitable result. The guns ATF let go began showing up at crime scenes in Mexico. And as ATF stood by, watching thousands of weapons hit the street, the Fast and Furious Group supervisor noted the escalating Mexican violence. 958 killed in March 2010, the most violent month since 2005. The same email notes, our subjects purchased 359 firearms during March alone, including numerous Barrett 50 caliber rifles.
Did you feel that ATF was partly perhaps to blame for the escalating violence in Mexico and on the border?
Yes, ma'am. I even asked them if they could see the correlation between the two. The more that our guys buy, the more violence that we're having down there.
Senior agents, including Dodson, told us they confronted their supervisors over and over.
And what was the answer? What did they say?
If you're going to make an omelet, you got to scramble some eggs.
There was so much opposition to the gun walking that an ATF supervisor issued this email noting a schism among the agents. Whether you care or not, people of rank and authority at headquarters are paying close attention to this case. We are doing what they envisioned. If you don't think this is fun, you're in the wrong line of work. Maybe the Maricopa County Jail is hiring detention officers, and you can get $30,000 to serve lunch to inmates.
We just knew it wasn't going to end well. There's no way it could.
Then, on December 14, 2010, Border Patrol agent Brian Terry was gunned down. Dodson got the bad news from a colleague.
And they said, did you hear about the Border Patrol agent? And I said, yeah. And I said, well, you know, it was one of Fast and Furious guns. And there's really not much you can say after that.
2 assault rifles ATF had let walk nearly a year before, similar to these, were found at Terry's murder.
I felt guilty. I mean, it's crushing. I don't know how to explain it. I mean,
Dodson and a dozen other ATF sources have all told the same story to Senator Grassley, who's investigating. You've tried to get some answers from ATF. What's been the response?
The response has been practically zilch. From the standpoint that documents we want, we have not gotten them. And I think it's a case of stonewalling.
Dodson says he hopes that speaking out helps the family of Border Patrol agent Brian Terry. They haven't been told much of anything about his murder or where the bullet came from.
first of all, I would tell him that I'm sorry. Second of all, I would tell him that I've done everything that I can for them to get the truth. After this, I don't know what else I can do, but I hope they get it.
Dodson says they never did take down a drug cartel. However, he says thousands of fast and furious weapons are still out there and will be claiming victims on both sides of the border for years to come. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Washington. New documents obtained by CBS News show Attorney General Eric Holder was sent briefings on the controversial Fast and Furious operation as far back as July 2010. That directly contradicts his statement to Congress. Listen to what Holder told a Judiciary Committee hearing on May 3rd this year.
I'm not sure of the exact date, but I probably heard about Fast and Furious for the first time over the last few weeks.
Yet internal Justice Department documents show that at least 10 months before that hearing, Holder began receiving frequent memos discussing Fast and Furious. They came from the head of the National Drug Intelligence Center and Assistant Attorney General Lanny Brewer. In Fast and Furious, ATF agents allegedly allowed thousands of weapons to cross the border and fall into the hands of Mexican drug cartels. It's called Letting Guns Walk, and it remained secret to the public until Border Patrol agent Brian Terry was murdered last December. 2 guns from Fast and Furious were found at the scene, and ATF agent John Dodson blew the whistle on the operation. Ever since, the Justice Department has publicly tried to distance itself. But the new documents leave no doubt that high-level justice officials knew guns were being walked. 2 Justice Department officials mulled it over in an email exchange October 18, 2010. It's a tricky case given the number of guns that have walked, but is a significant set of prosecution, says Jason Weinstein, Deputy Assistant Attorney General of the Criminal Division. Deputy Chief of the National Gang Unit, James Trusty, replies, "I'm not sure how much grief we get for guns walking. It may be more like, finally, they're going after people who sent the guns down there." Now, the Justice Department told CBS News that the officials in those emails were talking about an entirely different case started before Eric Holder became Attorney General. And tonight they tell CBS News Holder misunderstood that question from Congress, that he did know about Fast and Furious, just not the details. Up.
Taking nobody's picture.
I'm sorry?
I'm not taking anyone's picture.
Why are you recording me, sir?
I'm recording the event.
No,
and
your event is
everything
that way.
is in the event.
My face is this way.
Well,
Okay?
I'm
And
recording you
sitting in
now
that car,
because you're in my
and I'm
face.
sitting in that car right there.
Okay.
I'm not giving you permission to record me.
I didn't know I had to have permission to record
Now,
anything.
if you want to record your event, and who are you, sir?
My name is Alton Robinson.
Mr. Robinson, I know you very well.
Yes,
and
sir.
You know very well.
Yes, sir.
That I do not want my picture on Facebook like you have done in the past.
I've not put your picture or anyone else's picture
I'm
on
telling you now that if
Facebook.
you place my picture,
That's just,
listen
you're
to me, Mr.
premeditating
Robinson.
something, sir.
If you're going to place my photograph on Facebook, which I do not want you to do, I am telling you that there will be repercussions. If you want to
well, that's a threat,
if
and
you
I
want
don't
to
like to be
videotape the
threatened.
event, go ahead and videotape the event.
That's a threat, and I don't
But
like
do
to be
not-
threatened.
If this is not a threat, I'm telling you.
What
I do not
repercussions?
want-
For
I
what
do
purpose?
not
What have I
want
done?
you to
Have I
place-
broken a law?
You are.
What law have I broken?
It's against the law to record without a permit, sir.
It is?
Yes, sir.
Well, I will ask the city attorney about that. First thing tomorrow, Monday morning.
Yes, sir. By all means,
I would talk to Mr. Pisco and I would say, Mr. Pisco, is it against the law for me to videotape an event that I'm videotaping and then an officer happened to move in the in the area of the event that I'm taping.
What's going on over there, sir?
These gentlemen moved
I'm
this
parked
way,
right here.
and I'm
Okay.
videotaping everything. I'm videotaping the
This is
scenery.
what you need to do.
I'm videotaping the buildings. I'm videotaping the people. I'm videotaping the children. I was videotaping before you arrived. So now you arrived in the scene. I'm here. I'm not breaking no laws. I'm just minding my own business. That's all I'm doing.
Go
Yes,
ahead
sir.
and videotape your event. You're creating a disturbance now. If you want to videotape the event, by all means, go ahead.
What disturbance am I about to
Sir,
create?
go ahead and videotape the event.
I am videotaping the
You're
event.
creating disturbance by being loud and obnoxious.
Okay,
You're
now
drawing,
I'm lowering my voice.
You're drawing the attention of
No,
the people
I'm
here
not
that have
drawing the
absolutely
attention
nothing.
of anyone.
You're
When you
making
got
it
out
seem
the
as though
car
there's something
and all
going
these
on.
officers surrounded me,
You're making it seem as though there's something going on.
I'm being surrounded by officers. That's creating the scene. The officers surrounding me is creating the scene. Over where? For what? I'll give you my ID. I don't have my. I'll give you my identification. You can see who I am. Here's my wallet. Here's my identification. Here's my wallet. You can see who I am. You asked who I was. I'm telling you who I am. Here's my identification.
Step over here.
I don't need to step over there for you to see my identification.
Take. Stop recording me.
Now you
Step over to the car, sir,
Stop
like he
recording me,
advised you
okay?
to do. Step
Snatch my camera. You snatch my camera. You snatch my camera. I done nothing wrong. I hope somebody else is videotaping this. Everybody's videotaping now. What have I done? You snatched my camera. That cost me money. That's my property. That is my property. I'll attempt to show you my identification, who I am. Here's my identification right here. You know who I am.
It is nestled among the redwoods, 2,700 acres of pristine land, broken down into dozens of camps. And for 2 weeks every July since the 1880s, they've been filled with some of the most wealthy and powerful men in the world. Many of them arrive on their corporate jets at the nearby Sonoma County Airport. Others arrive in fancy cars, which will fill the on-site parking lot. At its height, there is said to be more than 2,000 men who attend, and as you can imagine, they are well protected by a trove of police.
This is private property.
Yeah, I know. So we're out covering the protest, and we just wanted to see if there was anyone
I would
that
like
could
you
give
guys
us...
to get off the property, please.
There's no way we could just get an escort?
Not at all, and I'll have the police come and arrest you if you don't leave, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Access is by invitation only, and most pay more than $15,000 to attend. And for more than 35 years, protesters have stood at the entrance gates.
Our concern is not what's going on inside of the Grove, but what's happening outside of the Grove with the people that are in here.
According to several reports, this is where the idea for the Manhattan Project was conceived back in 1942. It's also where every Republican president since the 60s has spent time before actually becoming the nominee.
We know for sure that Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan sat down and had conversation about who was going to run for president when, and they made a deal.
Peter Phillips wrote his dissertation on the Bohemian Club in 1994 and was invited to attend for 4 days. He witnessed firsthand the opening event, the cremation of care, where the power elite leave their cares behind in a symbolic ceremony beneath Moloch the owl, seen in this photo. Jed Jankel says he was a paid employee of the Grove and drove the horse and buggy that carried the casket in the ceremony.
The casket represented their cares, and they would actually burn it in along the lake with music.
This is a place filled with secrets that only those who go inside and perhaps the trees will ever really know. But I was able to get my hands on some photographs that I want to show you just to give you a sense on what it looks like on the inside. This is a photograph of people who attend. As we mentioned, it is all men, and this is a photograph of some of them. This here was taken back in 1999. Colin Powell, the back of Donald Rumsfeld's head, and this is Thomas Keane. 2 years later, he would become head of the 9/11 Commission. Here's a picture, Newt Gingrich, Henry Kissinger's son, and another shot of Thomas Keane.
Here's a much younger Dick Cheney at the Grove, and Henry Kissinger having a little fun. I was also able to get my hands on several programs from previous years, outlining the schedule of talks and their topics.
And what we have here on July 22nd, 2008 is the Lakeside Talk given by CFR member and Trilateral Commission member Fred Starr. He gave a talk called Afghanistan, the Unexpected Upside.
There are other connections to be made as well between the Lakeside Talks and public policies that follow.
This was a man that was involved in the oil business, George Linkowitz, the Persian Gulf crisis. This is 1980. Caspar Weinberger, who was the Secretary of Defense in the Reagan administration on rearming America. And that's easily documented. The arms buildup came in around late 81, 82.
There are rumors of extreme drunkenness, of prostitutes, and of homosexual activities by members. But for the most part, it is the secret backroom agreements critics say should be brought to light.
That agreement can be, occupying the Middle East, fighting terrorism, encircling China politically and militarily.
For Mary Moore, who's been researching Bohemian Grove for more than 3 decades, what happens inside is symptomatic of a much larger problem.
We've all grown up taking civics, trying to understand how the world works, and we're all told that we elect representatives, they go to Washington, we have total influence over them, and they make decisions that are in the best interests of us. Then we start growing up, and if we pay any kind of attention, we find out that none of that is true.
In Monterey, California, Christine Frizzau, RT.
I thank the gentleman. I rise in opposition of this bill, but I would like to clarify something. We're not trying to scare kids This president's foreign policy is what's scaring the kids of this country. And that people have said today, why are people believing this? Why are people believing this big internet hoax? Well, it's the same people that told us Saddam Hussein had something to do with 9/11. Same people that told us Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Same people that told us we were going to be able to use the oil for reconstruction money. Same people that told us that we'd be greeted as liberators, not occupiers. Same people, same president that told us the Taliban is gone. Same president that told us that Poland is our ally 2 days before they pull out. Same president that tells us Iraq is going just great. Same president that tells us the economy is going just great. Same people that told us the tax cut was going to create millions of jobs. Same people that told us that the Medicare program only cost $400 billion when it really cost $540 billion. So please forgive us for not believing what you're saying. Please forgive the students of this country for not believing what you're saying. Not one thing about this war that has been told to the American people or that has been told to these college students has been true. Not one thing. Bremer says we need more troops. The Pentagon says we need more troops. And this president can't get them from the international community. There's only one option left. Let's be honest with the American people. I yield back the balance of my time.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The end of everything that stands. The end. No safety or surprise, the end. I'll never look into your eyes again. Can you picture what will be so limitless and free? Desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land. Lost in a romance, wilderness of pain, and all the children are insane. All the children are insane. dreams inside the gold mine. Ride the highway west, baby. Ride the snake, ride the snake to the lake, the ancient lake, baby. The snake is long, 7 miles. Ride the snake. He's old and his skin is cold. The West is the best. The West is the best. Get here and we'll do the rest. The blue bus is calling us. The blue bus is calling us. Driver, where you taking us? The killer awoke before dawn. He put his boots on. He took a face from the ancient gallery and he walked on down the hall. He went into the room where his sister lived, and then he paid a visit to his brother, and then he walked on down the hall, and he came to a door, and he looked inside. Father, yes son, I want to kill you. Mother, I want to. Come on, baby, take a chance with us. Come on, baby, take a chance with us. Come on, baby, take a chance with us and meet me at the back of the blue bus. Do not blue rock on that blue bus. Do not, come on, yeah. baby. Come on, baby. Yeah. 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 Come on, baby. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah. 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 Come on. Yeah. All right. This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end. It hurts to set you free, but you'll never follow me. The end of laughter and soft light. The end